So, Jeff, we usually start the show off with kind of a hot button topic, and I totally hadn't even thought of it, but you brought it up right before we started recording. And I guess the big story of the week in AEW is Tony Khan essentially saying, you know what, all these people that you think are getting released, that, you know, maybe conditional releases, maybe, you know, not conditional, nobody's getting released. You signed a contract, you're sticking around till it's over, whether you want to or not, which is kind of what they used to say in WWE, and people got mad, holding them hostage. How dare you hold them hostage for $500,000 a year?
The discourse has just done a complete 180, hasn't it?
Right? Yeah. I mean, to be fair.
No, don't be
no,
fair.
I'm going to
Let's
be fair
right.
because I will say that in the case of WWE, they would often fire people before their contracts were up. So you shouldn't be able to have it one way or the other, except I tend to favor management on these ones. You know, call me a communist or whatever. Maybe
it'd be
the
opposite of a communist.
Be the opposite of, okay,
yes.
So I don't even know what the hell I am, but
Republican.
There you go. But I'm not. but I do think if you sign a contract, you should stick to it, and they should honor it. Like, you know, two parties sign a contract, unless the contract says you can end the contract with no notice. Which, as someone who contracts service providers, and actually they would be subcontractors similar to these employees, they all have clauses in them that either side can terminate the deal at any point without penalty.
Right.
Yeah. Now, obviously, these contracts don't have that. So Malachi Black, Andrade, who, depending on who you want to believe, Miro, Buddy, none of them are leaving. They're all sticking around for the long haul.
Miro was ever leaving.
That's what Ryan Frederick says.
Okay.
And I believe him. Ryan's got good sources. My podcast partner in the clinch on the MMA. Oh, it's on all over Reddit. I don't.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So what do you think?
Here's an interesting thing. Is the point about because there's going to come a day where Tony Khan decides to terminate a contract.
Mm-hmm. I think he has actually.
I believe he has without. I mean, not just letting it run out, but
who? Actually, the first one was that English guy. Jimmy Havoc.
Jimmy Havoc, yeah. And then maybe B Priestley. I don't know. Because no. You know who it was? It was the gymnast that they brought over from, I think, from England.
Right.
Who they gave the big video packages to, and she wrestled like one match, and then she just decided to go home, and COVID hit, and they just terminated her contract.
And then there's been some people that, you know, had like short-term deals that we thought were long-term, like Leo Rush.
But it's funny that so many people who just, Vince McMahon's evil for keeping somebody who doesn't want to work there, working there, blah, blah, blah. Tony's the good guy, so they should release and let him go over to Tony. Now, Tony's playing a little bit of hardball, and there's a lot of those people who are just looking around at each other going,
yeah,
how do I be intellectually consistent on this? And the way you do that is you say, yes, if you signed a contract,
yeah,
you have to be a person of your word, and you have to adhere to it. Well, the person who owns the company doesn't have to be. Yeah, exactly. They don't have to be, and it sucks. But that's part of also the deal. They are the owner of the company. You are an employee. You are not equals in any way. So it's, I get that. As far as Tony actually doing this, good for him.
Yeah.
You know what? Look, my thing is, if this is going to be a brave new world of wrestling, in terms of having bargaining power, then you better learn to bargain. Mm-hmm. And if that includes, hey, I want to just work for you for a year and then see how the market is for me, then that's how you should go about it. Yeah. I understand the buyer's remorse of the whole thing. Because when you signed the deal, Vince McMahon didn't look like he was ever going to be leaving the WWE. And the guy who treated you well is now running it. I get it.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure if Adam Cole had to do it all over again, he maybe would have signed a 2-year deal instead of a 5-year.
You chose security over seeing that the market would improve for you. And I don't necessarily have a lot of sympathy. And it's not that I'm not empathetic to their plight, because trust me, I've taken jobs where I go, this is a mistake, but I said, hey, I'm coming here to work right now, and I agreed to it. But it's also one of those things where Tony has his interests too, and part of Tony's interest is not helping the other guy.
Well, that's just it. And you bring in a Malachi Black who they were wasting, and you push him, and he looks awesome, and and he looked like a guy that was going to be challenging for the world title at some point, and then he started doing the stuff he wanted to do that he was never allowed to do in WWE, and all of a sudden he went downhill.
That's the part of the discourse that gets me. Is oh man, TK really wasted Malachi Black. I'm like, no, TK let Malachi Black do what Malachi Black wanted to do, it seems.
Yeah.
And this was the result.
Whenever people are unhappy with AEW, all of a sudden they suck.
It's Tony's fault.
No, it's the other way. It's their fault. Like I've seen that too. Yeah. No, I've seen what you're saying too. Yeah, the people that are anti AEW are going to say, oh yeah, it's Tony's fault. But what I see a lot of times is guys are great, and then all of a sudden they say something negative about AEW, and like, oh, they're troublemakers, and we didn't want them around. They suck anyway.
Yeah, you get the complainer. You get
Brian
the thing
Cage.
That, they're just complaining all the time.
Andrade, Malachi Black.
I have no problem with people complaining. I really don't. It's like, dude, you should
are
the
up for
product.
yourself. Yeah, you should stick up for yourself. So I mean,
so it now does though point out that Tony Khan does have some weaknesses in storytelling ability. It really does, and also just long-term storytelling, not just the week-to-week stuff.
Yeah, because I mean, everyone raves about it, but I thought, I don't want to plug other people, but listening to Lance Storm on a podcast and explaining there was a survey years ago where, or it wasn't that long ago, like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, where they asked people like whether you preferred WWE's method of storytelling or AEW's, and WWE won like something like 67%, and everyone was like, what the hell are you talking about? WWE can't tell a story, they can't keep their storyline straight, blah blah blah. And they said, oh well, it's just because their video packages are so good and they can make sense of the crap that WWE is doing. And that's true, but the other part of it is AEW's storytelling, like their actual storytelling, weaving from show to show and everything, is not actually that great.
No, it's
what's
not.
Great, what's great is the matches.
The matches, yes. And they like to say that the story is in the match.
Correct.
And that's not always true. I got news for you. That's not always true. It might be a great match,
but it is one of their strengths.
The matches are the strength. Yeah, the problem is right now that WWE is now putting on longer and stronger matches as well.
But they have no heat because the crowd is used to the stories. The crowd is used to the stories. Yes. So when you get a match like Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio, where the actual story is not about those two guys, even though they're having a great match, it doesn't get the reaction.
Yeah, that was a great point by Lance. What I'm saying is, but here's, I was thinking about this while I was watching AEW. Matches are the means to the end of the storytelling. And that is why your best matches should probably be on your pay-per-view when it's the blow-off of the story, as opposed to the week-to-week wrestling where it's just, all right, we'll see what's next week. We'll see what's next. Oh, we got a great match, though. And I know that there's a lot of people who are members of this site, of the Patreon, and there's a lot of members of the people at the other place I work at, Voices of Wrestling, that hate hearing that. They absolutely loathe hearing that. I want good wrestling. I want great matches on my weekly shows, blah, 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 blah. Yes, and when you get them week to week, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, and the stories take a backseat. And I don't necessarily want stories. I just want heated rivalries of some kind. I don't need Ulysses. I don't need a 6-part volume set of the feud between Hobbs and Starks. I really don't. I just need a heated feud with some stakes to it. This storytelling has been going on television since television was invented, and people seem to be able to do a good job of it without necessarily having great matches week to week. And yet here we are in the most modern of times, and we still have companies that don't realize that even though they do it poorly, WWE kind of had it correctly. You make movies, in some way. I'm not saying it always, because trust me, the WWE promo style kills me. I hate it. I hate it so much in so many ways. But AEW's promo style is well, go out there and say something, see how it happens. And you're just
do you watch regular TV?
Yes,
Okay. So I was kind of thinking about this and pertaining it to regular TV, and there's different kinds of television shows. And I'm
Yes.
not talking sitcoms and dramas. I'm talking, let's just use dramas for an example. You got your network TV dramas that are like NCIS, for instance. I'll use that because it's a really popular show.
Procedurals.
Right. The shows are self-contained 1 hour, actually 44-minute episodes.
Yes.
Where, you can watch any show over the last 20 years that NCIS has been on the air. You don't necessarily need to know what happened before. You don't need to know what happened after. You can just kind of step in and watch the show, and you're going to have a beginning, middle, and end, and the show's over. There will be storylines that weave throughout the individual episodes that go episode to episode.
And the trade-off will be poor characterization that's sometimes disguised as interplay amongst the characters.
Yes.
The characters never really change. They never really grow.
No, Gibbs in season 3 is the same as Gibbs in season 18.
They all remain static. What happens is this is bad guy of the week, crime of the week. They're going to solve it, etc.
Right. The other type is a show like Succession
is the story arc.
Yes, and the whole season is a story, and sometimes maybe even 2 or 3 seasons.
Paul, you do realize I have studied television writing.
Yes, no, I know, but I'm explaining it. I'm not necessarily explaining it to you. I'm explaining it to other people. So both are good. I enjoy both.
Yes.
I enjoy NCIS. I enjoy Succession. There's good versions of what NCIS does. There's bad versions of what NCIS does. There's good versions of what Succession does. There's bad versions of what Succession does.
Yes.
And the same thing so I would compare the WWE style more to like the NCIS, and I would compare, or no, actually the AEW would be more the NCIS, and the WWE would be more the Succession.
It'd be the bad version of Succession, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. But where the storylines, like you can watch a whole year of WWE and you might still have the same storyline going on. Whereas AEW, it's week to week to week, but you have some things that kind of go through the weeks. But like, for instance, everything that happened this week has absolutely nothing to do with what happened last week.
Yes.
Kind of. In a way. Yeah. I mean, especially like I'll use Rampage, for instance, and this can bleed into, we always talk about what you watch.